Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the GMD Think Alike podcast, where we discuss life and thought-provoking topics. My special guest here is Joseph Maiava. Welcome, bro. We'll just get straight into it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. We always have interesting conversations.
Yeah. I've got a bit going on about here.
Yeah, so we'll discuss that. We'll try and block out these cameras and we'll just get straight into these thought-provoking issues.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about life,
and
so I think that's a good opportunity to maybe discuss how we actually met.
Yeah.
So this is probably the second or third time we actually met, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. That's so much easier said than done to block out cameras, bro. I find it so difficult to kind of do.
We'll slowly get
over it now. But I was thinking about that before I came here, was the fact that, this is the third time I've met you. And the last time I saw you was at my brother Luke's funeral, because you worked with Luke, or I came on tour with you.
That's how I met your brother Luke, is through work. So we worked together for years. So I worked in a company called Ingram Micro in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And they basically just distribute like IT laptops and computer stuff. But they had a customer that was so big that was like an in-house customer. And that's where Luke was working. So we kind of knew each other from there and found out that he knew a lot of people that I knew, same circles. And then we went on tour around New Zealand doing music and arts kind of thing. Yeah. And then unfortunately he took his life in November 2019. And I think that's where I first met you at his funeral.
Yeah. I don't even think I met you. No, I did. I met you at the funeral. I was thinking of...
I think I did meet you somewhere, but I wasn't sure. I think was at maybe like a place next to like a gas station. I think I dropped Luke off.
Oh, true.
And I remember I saw Robin.
Johnson.
Yeah.
True.
I always remember that because I was sitting down. I think you were there. And he just comes out of the room like on a scooter.
Is this at an apartment?
Yeah.
Greyland. Yeah. It would have been in Greyland.
I think it was Greyland.
Okay. Yeah.
So I was thinking, I wasn't sure if you were there.
Yeah.
You
were still up there. Yeah. True. Okay. Yeah.
I always had that vision of him coming in on a scooter.
Yeah, I can see that as well.
So I think I met you there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But then that was like
ages ago. Yeah, ages ago. Yeah. That's how I know Luke.
Yeah, we were quite close. And when I met you, like at Luke's funeral, I felt like Luke was still here because of you.
Yeah.
You know, you probably get that a lot because you remind me a lot of Luke.
Yeah.
Like you look similar.
Yeah.
Your humor.
Yeah.
You know, your personalities are really similar.
Yeah.
So
definitely cut from the same cloth. But I even before, like to that point actually, even before Luke died, I have two brothers, and one's younger than me. He's 2 years younger, and Luke's 2 years older. And my younger brother died when we were kids. So he was 5, and then me and Luke were 7 and 9. And
that was Ronnie, yeah?
That was Ronnie. His name's Ronnie. So we were, both Luke and I were introduced to this whole, not even concept, just like reality of death, you know, and how
From a young age,
you know. And so it was like, really like shaped my life. Like there was no way around it when something happens to you. It's so traumatic at that young age. It shapes your life. It was a defining moment more than it was like a hindrance to anything, a hindrance to my growth or anything. I feel like Luke and I would have like conversations about how, you know, the whole regret thing, you know, just making sure that you treat people so that when you walk away from the situation that you're not regretting anything. Because when we were kids, when Ronnie died, you know, Luke and I would have conversations like, man, I wish I gave him one last hug. I wish I told him I loved him. I wish I gave him, you know, one more kiss.
More, yeah.
These kinds of things. Having like big conversations when we were 7 and 9.
Wow.
You know, exactly. So that kind of set up our the relationship that Luke and I had was like very it was deep and dark because of a bunch of things, but yeah, very
That
deep.
was one of them.
That was one of them. Yeah, for sure.
I always find you guys have like an amazing humor.
Yeah.
And so I think, was that like a way you think maybe helped you guys cope?
Yeah.
Like using it?
Absolutely.
Humor?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I like our humor was like really like our jokes were like really like I said, like it's really dark sometimes. Like I know when other people would overhear us, spinning some bands, and they would overhear our jokes and stuff, and they're like, well, that's really, it's inappropriate, or it's this kind of thing. And I know that that's a way that I deal with life, what life throws at you and things. Because even when Luke died, man, I then didn't have that person that I could have the same kind of jokes with. I had cousins who understood the humor that we had, and so that I think that a lot of the time they were like just kind of laughing along, knowing that I had no one else to joke with, about this. That when
I think you guys are on another level with your jokes, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate them too.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because that was probably that was
Because
definitely
it's deep, yeah. It's like not.
Yeah.
It will go over a lot of people's heads.
Yeah, or like sometimes I feel like the joke was so silly or just so ridiculous that like you had to know that me and Luke knew something in order to find that funny,
Yeah.
Sometimes people just say things, and I find them so genius. Like there's just this geniusness in there, how stupid that comment was.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of humor that I feel like I had with Luke. You could say things, and the sarcasm was like definitely wasn't lost with him. And I find that like hard to have right now. So that was a lesson from like Luke.
I think that's why I really I was quite relieved when I started speaking to you.
Yeah.
There's no other person like Luke.
Yeah.
But then there's another part to him, which is you,
Yeah.
And you're right too. There's just no one else for you to kind of share that with at the moment, I think.
Yeah. I had I don't know how much I can say, like or anything. So I had like I would every time I would like try out a new drug, I'd say that.
Yeah, okay. Your mum was watching.
Yeah.
Shout out to
mum. So every time I would try out a new drug, or I'll get too drunk, or just have some kind of like out of body experience, or have like these existential crises that that we all have every now and then. I'll call Luke, and then no matter what time of the day it was, we'll talk and kind of chew the fat, and he'll just delve into like my head, like how we feeling, what's it like, and really like pick my brain about like how I'm feeling and everything.
Wow, that's cool.
I had that was the point. Sorry, I lost the point for a minute. But recently I had this moment where because I had this older brother who was kind of like a father figure, because our dad's quite young, and so me and Luke kind of we are more mates with my dad than anything, and I know that my dad can even appreciate that as well. I feel like a lot of the times we were learning things at the same time, all together. And so I had this moment after Luke passed that I was in this I was in a K-hole, and I was like just spiraling, and I had this like realization that now both Luke and Ronnie, they live in my head. You know how I say that I don't have anyone to like physically,
energy,
Yeah, I can't physically give Luke a call and be like, oh man, I'm tripping out, this kind of thing. But now they live in my head, and so I have now become my new captain. I am now the only captain on my ship. I'm the only person that I can rely on to an extent. I live in a world with other people, and so I appreciate that as well. But yeah, that realization, like in this K mess that I was in, was such an eye-opening moment, man, because I felt like I no longer sought Luke's advice or even validation or just banter. I no longer sought that, and I felt like that was a moment of closure for me, because during his whole funeral situation, man, that was so fast. Everything just happened so fast, and at the time I was just getting to meditation, so it was all about like present, like let's be in this moment, Joe. Like this is never going to happen again, But everything still just like flies by, man, and then you're having to perform for everybody and all this stuff. So I felt like a
brave face,
exactly. I felt like I'm going to be dealing with the grief, for years to come. But that weirdly was like one of the first moments of closure that I had. Like, yeah, okay, he lives in my head. This is where he lives now, and I need to treat it as such. And whenever I'm trying to, whenever I'm having new experiences that I want to share with him, I just weirdly
it's like connected already.
Yeah, he already knows. I don't even have to tell anyone. He knows, And so now it kind of helps me to be more present when I'm experiencing new things. Instead of me being like, okay, I've experienced that, I'm going to give him a call. Hey, this is what's happening. I'm lying down, whatever. I'm lying down on pavement, things like that. I really am just lying on the pavement, high as fuck, just like experiencing it all with these two, boys in my head, with Luke and Ronnie in my head. So the way that that's like defined me, or the way that that's gonna define me, is like we're still at early stages, man. It was only 2 years ago, but
it doesn't feel. Still feels
so
fresh.
Yeah. Well, then COVID happened. So
it was like a leap year.
It was
like a year went past, but
actually
nothing actually happened.
Actually, but it was like stars aligned. I think I need not only did the world need a moment to slow down, but the timing of it all, man, like that couldn't have worked out to be more perfect. COVID happening straight after his funeral. Everyone had a moment to just slow down, think about what you're doing, this kind of thing.
Process.
Process everything, exactly. Process everything. And this is real. Your life is real. This matters. This doesn't matter. So as bad as COVID has been for a lot of people, I totally understand that. It's just kind of played out fine for me. So to your simulation point, mate,
we were talking about simulation before we started recording.
My one's working perfectly fine.
No glitches.
No glitches. Like when that happened, I was honestly thinking, man, like if there was a moment in my life that I did believe that I was like just put all in for the simulation theory, it was that moment. It's like, this couldn't have happened, and you can't make this up. Like we've got a global pandemic. Everybody's shut down. This has never happened in my life.
Many lives.
Here we are. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So just going back to Ronnie, bro, like, so I know a bit more. So like, he was 5 when he passed away, yeah?
Yeah, he was 5.
And how old were you and Luke again? Sorry.
So I was 7, he was 9, Luke was 9.
Okay. And how did he pass, if you don't mind?
I've romanticized the story in my head because it is quite a sad story. But long story short, he got hit by a bus. He got hit by a bus, and it was on Boxing Day. So on his present, I was riding his bike across the road, and then around a blind spot, and a bus came and hit him. And I know that affected me and Luke in different ways. I know
it affected me, man.
Yeah, I was
hearing about it.
Yeah, that moment. But Luke and I were both there, like when it happened, and both played like. It was so good that we were there, like, in hindsight. Because, yeah, man, like, what a foundation to build. Like, I know that this sounds so selfish, man, but when these kinds of things happen, and when 2 deaths, like I was thinking about this last night, when my 2 brothers had passed away, there's no other way for me to be, man. Like, I can only then go internal. I can only be selfish at these moments. When death, I've kind of had similar conversations with other mates, other people, and their responses are so varied, man. Like, this is because certain people have never been to a funeral, certain people have never even like experienced death, like couldn't even fathom the idea of their family members dying, whatever. But because this has happened twice for me in my life, I'm like, not surprised as much, especially when Luke died.
Mm.
I'd had 30 odd years to prepare for, like 20 odd years to prepare for this whole scenario. I had been living for like I'd never.
You addressed it early.
Exactly.
I addressed it early. Yeah?
100%. And full prep for it. I'd never walked away from a conversation with Luke thinking, I regret that. Like, I wish I didn't say that. So when that happened, my last interaction with Luke, man, I wish, again, like it was just simple things. I wish that I had just grabbed him. I wish that I'd hugged and kissed him. I wish I told him I loved him. But I didn't.
It was meant to,
Exactly. All of these things just happen. Anything that happens is supposed to happen. That's kind of like, what I got out of it.
Yeah, don't overlook what you did have.
100%. Exactly. So, but I know that Ronnie's death affected us differently. Luke, at the time Luke stayed back, I was already on my way back to the house. I don't know why. I was already on my way back to the house. So I found myself in the position of the messenger. I have to tell everyone, Luke's going to try to revive this guy. And I'm on my way, like a 7-year-old kid having to tell, like a group of adults. Yeah, and it was that experience. So, yeah, it's so funny because up until I was maybe a teen, maybe even in my 20s, Ronnie's situation had been so personal and only my experience. Luke and I never really spoke about or exchanged stories. We never did this until
it would have been so painful.
Yeah, and kind of
to bring it back up and open up the wounds.
And it was more like, I know you're dealing with something, that I'm dealing with something. Let's just have this mutual respect for one another, mutual consideration.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't need to know the details or anything like that. Fast forward 20 years, when we started discussing this, man, our experiences were like two completely different, just time periods. Like, they were two completely different stories. And I know that actually, that Luke carried that with him to his grave, this whole thing, because he felt like his role in that situation was to revive him, to bring him back to life. It was so weird that
That's heavy, yeah.
I know, man.
Yeah,
I know. And I had the easy job, and even at the time, like I said, how we didn't exchange stories, and my story was personal to me until I was 20. Even then, I understood that, okay, I wasn't there. I didn't have to see him, I didn't have to see him lying on the ground, whatever. I didn't have to see his body, but Luke, man, he carried this. He was he even got to a point where he was telling me that he felt like he killed him. He was like, I killed, him. I tried to help him out and all this stuff. I'm like, man, this is so weird. And this is us being full adults, and him kind of.
He definitely didn't.
No, he 100% didn't. This is undoubtedly, he had nothing to do with, man, you've got this bus that's crushed a 5-year-old body, At 9 years old, you're not really, understanding all of this. And it is, like I said, you go so internal at these panic moments. So he carried that for ages. And even up until the day that he died, he would jokingly bring this up, and I was joking. But he'll jokingly bring it up, and I'm like, man, I've had it. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear that joke anymore. It's old, it's age, and I know that the more you repeat it, the more it's becoming this actual thing that you've done, and you're gonna fest on that energy, and it's not good, man. Let it go, type thing. But anyways, both of us were affected two completely different ways from that experience.
It's traumatic from a very young age.
100%, man. 100%. It was massive.
I always think there's always the positive and negative. So that was the negative. I think the positive from that is it actually did help you address a very serious situation at a young age.
Yeah.
That set you up, I think, later on to cope with these very harsh issues.
Yeah.
Because even adults in these, like you said, you probably haven't experienced that degree of loss yet. But it's inevitable. Everyone is going to feel some loss at some time.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a positive. For myself, I've addressed death as well. And I think I've never felt more alive once I had addressed it.
Man, yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So that's it's always a positive in there, you know.
That is. It's like actually, like they say, there's an old saying that says, if the mountain was smooth, you couldn't climb it. Like we need these rigid edges, you know, you need these sharp corners and all this stuff in order to climb this mountain that they call life, whatever. And through these kinds of moments, like I had that was replaying in my head exactly what you said. Through death, you appreciate life so much more. I feel so alive, man. Like I'm not there, you know. And that thought happened both times. Like, you know, at both my brother's funerals, looking at their bodies and their coffins, just like, man, I'm standing up, but you know, and I'm processing this. I'm doing this right now. This is my life. Only really able to articulate it at my brother's funeral, being a lot older, obviously. But absolutely, man. Like I now appreciate life so much, you know, and even from a young age, like it was the same thing. But through death comes life, you know. You can. It's like the whole yin yang, you know, situation. Without not that this concept of yin yang, but without evil, there's no good. Without good, there's no evil. You need something to offset something else in order for it to exist. Something needs opposites in order to, you know, actually be a thing. Exactly. And I don't think that I needed it, but I had these things happen, you know, these two.
You needed it.
Yeah. Obviously, I did. Exactly.
Simulation.
100%, you know, 100%. Like that was built. And these two things happened. I was reminded twice that, Joe, you're alive. You know, this is what's happening. And your death is always going to be there. But yeah, it's
a sense of gratitude too, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's heavy, bro.
Hard.
So another thing is like, were your parents like together during that time with Ronnie?
No, they weren't actually. They were just working through their divorce. So they'd been separated for a while. So we were all born in Australia, and then my mum, and then we moved back to New Zealand, and in '92. And so
it would have been...
So I was like 4, I think, 3, 4. And so we moved back to NZ, and then, since 92 up until 95, which is when Ronnie died, they were kind of separated for trying to work things out, I guess. That didn't work out. So they were just working through their divorce, and that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back, for obvious reasons. Without going into too much detail.
That's their story.
That's their story, yeah.
But from your perspective.
Yeah, exactly. From my perspective, I saw just the weight of the world crush my mom, particularly. And I am not a female, obviously. I will never have children. I'll never be able to bear children from my womb. That's not the way it be. But
not in this galaxy.
Not in this galaxy. But I can imagine, I can only imagine what it would feel like to have something that came from me, go so soon. Especially my youngest, And so that was another thing that I saw as a 7-year-old kid, watching my mum just die inside, die a little, And that was so sad, such a sad moment. And then for it to happen again, my mum found my brother, actually. That, you're like, oh my God, that is heavy. That is some heavy shit. Again, at the risk of sounding selfish, that gave me a lot of perspective. No matter how bad I think I have it, my mom has got it. She's experienced some shit, man. So
shout out to Auntie.
Shout outs, man.
She's strong. She's a strong woman.
Strong. She'd have to.
That first time, I think that really would have, felt ripping from the heart.
Yeah.
So to deal with that, And then the relationship issues with the children.
Yeah.
Probably,
Yeah.
understandably a lot
Yeah.
to take in.
But it also set me up for like my understanding or appreciation of not just my mom, but a woman's worth, like a woman's strength. Again, you know, we're not women, and so but for so many reasons, like I've always kind of you know, spoken to women. I've always like had so many girl mates and all this stuff, and that's been a thing that I've kind of really appreciated the strength of a woman through the experiences that my mum went through. It's weird though, because we live in this like such a man's world that a lot of, you know, my girl mates, they don't understand, or they don't see how I see them, you know, or how I kind of, or they don't see what I see.
What you appreciate.
Yeah, you know,
female.
They talk about like feminine tendencies or feminine traits to be like weaknesses, you know, whereas
A lot of good virtues.
so, yeah, like just like you know, your emotions, like touching on that, that's a weakness. No, we don't. You're not supposed to show emotion. That's weak. So that's what makes you stronger than any person out there, is the fact that you can actually just feel a situation out. I think that logic. Now, don't like this isn't a fact or anything, but I think that males have a tendency to be very logical and strategic and very planned out, methodical. You consider a lot of past experience and future possibilities when you're making a decision. Will this serve me, or will it hinder me? This kind of thing. Whereas I feel like women's
empathetic.
Yeah, just they'll go into a situation and just like I just feel like that's the right thing to do, you know. Whereas there's rare times that, you know, a guy would, that, you know, there's a few times that I've heard of, you know, men just doing that or admitting to that, just going.
I think it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I feel like
men are a bit more objective.
Yeah, exactly.
Women are more subjective.
Subjective. Yeah, it's like this. I feel like it's the right thing to do, and I'm just going to do it. You know, there's no logic. I have no idea why I'm doing this. I'm just doing it. You know, this kind of thing. Whereas, yeah, I learned that from my female friends that, yeah, okay, maybe I think too much about, you know, certain things. I assess way too much, over-assess things. But I think that's a strength, man. Such a strength. And I was kind of open, you know, my mum helped me to see that, I guess. Yeah. But that's true.
So, should we talk about this simulation?
Yeah. Why not?
Before we do that, I'm just thinking that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what's one of the most difficult things you've gone through? And you've already talked about it. What's on the flip side? When have you felt like the happiest?
I feel like I'm constantly trying to find that, you know. I'm
like a chaser.
Yeah, and it's never.
Once you feel it, it's probably gone, and then it's like.
Yeah, like even. I feel like just how like when we grew up, when we became adults, there wasn't a moment that you were like. You woke up in the morning, and you're like, oh man, I woke up an adult this morning. You know, that never happened. I feel the same way about happiness, is that there's never a point in my life, you know, I can only speak for myself, so there's never been a point in my life that I've been like, wow, this is it. This is, you know, I found Nirvana. This is
July the 26th.
Yeah. 96. It was 96. It's great, yeah. But yeah, I don't feel like I've ever been.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you know, this kind of thing. But I know that it's always it's a pursuit of happiness, you know. Like I'm always gonna be pursuing this. I'm always gonna be chasing this high, and I'm happy with that. I'm kind of happy to be there. I kind of live my life knowing that my life is like. Not actually, it's not bad. I was gonna say my life is mediocre. So I know that. I appreciate it for more than that, but. Yeah, I've never had a moment in my life where I've been like, this is the happiest that I've ever been. Like, you know, I've definitely felt that. I've definitely felt that way on, like, you know, on certain drugs, but that's, it's just not a sustainable happiness. It's not a feasible way to find happiness. I mean, yeah.
It's a good segue into drugs there.
Yeah.
Because for me, I've never actually done drugs apart from alcohol.
Yeah.
So what were some of like the previous experiences?
Oh man, there's so many, man. So
educate me on this. What's it like?
There was like, I'm just trying to think of like a real trippy experience. You know what? I think that because of my background and just the way that my brain works, that I would never get. I fortunately would never abuse my relationship with anything, any vice. Yeah. Be it food, I don't know, porn, like TV, social media, all of these different things, and drugs included. And part of that thing,
You're very conscious of it.
I don't think that I'm necessarily conscious of it. I think that subconsciously I do that. I think consciously I've got other things to be doing. Like even now, today, like if I could be out drinking, have a mad night, go to a party, but the next day I know that I've got to do something. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to be tired. I don't want to lose an entire day, kind of thing. Always keen to try things. And I've tried a lot of drugs, but have fortunately never been addicted to them. Like, kind of had my experience and then moved on. Had my experience once or twice, or a few times, and then been able to move on. But I don't know, man. There was like this moment, and I still live in Amsterdam, and I worked at this barbershop. I worked at this bar that was connected to a barbershop. So our Christmas party was a lock-in, closed doors. It was just this amazing old building.
Amsterdam.
It was just this beautiful building. It was the world's first stock exchange, so it was just this like grand old building. And me and my mates got on like a few different drugs. We had there was K, there was anyway, I'm not even going to list this, but K was the
I heard it's very accessible and
it's just easy, man. Yeah, it's so accessible. I was living my life, I was having fun, whatever. So a couple of my mates, and we were all the majority of us were Kiwis and Australians, so we all have to speak the same language. We all have the same sense of humour.
Hey, mate.
Hey, mate. Again. We all have similar sense of humour and same references as well. So, so we're all having a blast. It's having a great time at this party. And I got to this point where I had just had too much K, and
What is K exactly?
So it's a horse tranquilizer. I know that they use it to tranquilize horses. Apparently, I haven't looked into it that much, but I know that that's what they say. And if you have too much of it, then you can actually, even if you just have the buzz, is that it's kind of like weed for me. It feels like weed, but a lot more surreal. Things slow down, and like when you stand up and walk. When I stood up and walked, it feels like I'm walking on the moon, like this kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's a pretty cool buzz, to be honest. So I had far too much of this tranquilizer, and I just had this moment where, so they had this thing, if you take too much of it, then you fall into this K-hole, which basically means you're about to fall asleep, that you're being so tranquilized that your body's just given out, I think.
You go into like a trance or something, or you just fall asleep?
Basically, I felt like so we had those what do you call them? Arcade games, like the arcade game machines in this barbershop. And I remember I was playing Mortal Kombat with someone, and then I started to become the character. Like I was playing, and I'm watching this character fight Raiden, and I'm watching this character fight, and then he flies across the screen, and then I felt like I was flying in the screen. And I'm like, and then I start to think about, what's going to be my next move? Like if he falls over, if he stands back up, and I'm thinking like I'm Raiden, this kind of thing. And I'm like,
finish it.
You're fucked. Yeah. You need to get out of here. You need to get out of here. So I literally just ditch the game. I run into the barber shop, sit on one of the barber chairs, and just look in the mirror. And I'm just like, get it together, man, get it together, because there's a whole Christmas party going on outside. And I look up.
Does it feel like you're wearing the whole outfit and things?
No. At this point, I'm still me. No, at this point, I sound like I'm me. Like I know, I am aware enough to understand at that point, like you're tripping. You know, you need to get up. So Joe runs into the barber shop, sits in the chair, look in the mirror. And when I look in the mirror, I just see a starry night. I see like the galaxy, and that's a cool trip. I can deal with this. This is mellow. I like space. This is cool. I can deal with this. And as I'm looking into this galaxy, I start to see the faces of like male figures in my family. Like my dad's face pops up, and then my grandfather's pop up. They're all just like floating around. Their faces are just floating around. And my grandfather says to me, they hardly speak English, man. So but
you understand.
But I understand what they're saying. Especially at this moment, because it's me talking to myself, and he's like, look at me, and he's like, we bought you. He's basically like saying, do you appreciate this opportunity? Do you appreciate this opportunity that we came to New Zealand? You know, like we came
all
from
the way.
Yeah, and here you are on horse tranquilizers. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a moment where he's like, what are you doing with this opportunity? You know, I came on a ship, and so I had this like, you know, thing.
Like an instant story of like,
like he wasn't literally saying this will probably happen in that second type thing, but the message that I got from that was,
let's get it together.
Yeah, I spent 2 weeks on a boat from Samoa to New Zealand, and I needed, you know, I wanted to create, you know, a young man or, you know, whatever. I wanted to create my future generation. Yeah, this kind of thing. Take advantage of the opportunities that are available to you in the Western world, and this is what you're doing. You take horse tranquilizer. What the hell? So I was like, yeah, okay, that's it. That's a good point. So. That was a mad
sitting in the barber seat.
Yeah, just sitting barber seat, probably for like an hour as well, doing absolutely nothing, you know, this kind of thing. So I've had these kinds of experiences on drugs.
Was that like really vivid?
Very, very vivid. Yeah, a lot of my trippy experiences have been very vivid, and I'm not necessarily condoning the use of drugs,
of course,
but just which is why I kind of spoke to like how I feel like my brain is, or like how I am just wired. Fortunately, I know that it's
fortunately.
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, I'm wired in this way that I kind of have these experiences, but I have never been like you know, starving because I've spent all my money on drugs type thing. You know, I see them as a vice that we can kind of dip into every now and then, whatever, to experience whatever it is you want to experience. But then I can go a year without doing anything, you know, like it's fine. That was definitely one of the more like vivid trips that I had, and it was a good lesson as well. It was well.
In the K-hole.
In this K-hole, out there in the galaxy.
All right. So one thing that I do is I love to travel. Like I don't smoke, I don't drink. I use my money for, you know, living costs, family things, but then I love to travel. It's that's kind of my thing where I get the most enjoyment out of life, because I feel like each country I go to is like traveling to a new world.
Absolutely.
You know, you look at it like different cultures and people, and it's just like it almost feels like alien. You know, the more remote place you go to, the more it feels like you're in another planet.
Yeah.
And so it's really I love these experiences.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite country?
Yeah, so far, like Italy.
Actually.
Yeah, Italy, just because like growing up doing a lot of art and studying the Renaissance and all this and that, and actually seeing it with my own eyes, and then going with my partner, and then experiencing those moments with her. And so, yeah, Italy is probably my favorite. Food, the culture, the people,
architecture,
everything.
Unreal.
I just loved it. The art is a big one. And so, like, where are all the places that you've been to?
Well, to your point, actually, that I would travel for the exact same reason. And you don't actually know that until you get out and go to your first country outside of your home. That man, I never saw temples. I never saw these like, you know, bloody Buddhist temples. I never saw all of the, you know, all of these things. I didn't grow up in this place. But also I think that it helped me to appreciate New Zealand a lot more, having gone overseas. But the heaps, man. I like first got like most of Southeast Asia. I go a few years ago now, I moved to Amsterdam to live there for a minute. That was really cool. And then I got to kind of travel around the world. I didn't think that I'd go to the States as well. And I went to the States when I was in Amsterdam because the ticket was so cheap. So that was a really cool experience. One thing that I've done in like these countries, and it was typically because the first place that I checked out was it was actually Japan, but then I like did a lot of Southeast Asia with an ex of mine actually. We went to like Borneo, it's like Thailand, like Indonesia, all of these places. But every place that I'll be in, I would always kind of think back to this to walk when we used to walk to school, and because that was like I don't know, I'd do that. It was just the same route every day. I would walk from my house past the dairy, past the school field, and I'd be at school. And that was just such a vivid journey for me. I still even have dreams about it today. I don't know why, whatever I did. But whenever I've been in other countries and I've walked past certain landmarks or just like temples was a massive thing. Or even in Italy, with their like the buildings, I'd always think like, how would my life have been, or how would my perception of the world have been had I been walking past these places as a little kid, every day? Because my mind, I think, is based on a dairy field. It's very simple. It's very open. There's a lot of space, a lot of room for new things to come in, for new influences. That's my life. Pretty simple. That's my mind. It's pretty basic. How would my perception of the world have shaped had I walked past that Buddhist temple that's around the corner, that the art gallery that's in Rome, or something like that. Walking past the Colosseum, for example, to get to school. That's massive.
There are kids actually doing the same thing.
Exactly.
All different experiences, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, for some reason, I've always kind of thought that, like, even just being on trains or like traveling places, I'm like, man, what if this was my school run? Like, passing rice fields or I don't know, Colosseum would be nice if I've never been there. So, have you been there?
Yeah. In Italy? Yeah. So I just realized I asked like a very selfish question because I could just listen to you talk about travel. I just love to ask people like, oh, where have you been? And I don't know, I get excited just listening to people talk about their experiences,
Yeah.
So that'll be like a 5-hour podcast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I can go on
talking about
ages.
what did you do?
Yeah.
So we'll be a bit more specific for the audience.
Yeah, cool.
So have you been to Japan?
I've been to Japan, yeah.
So how long were you there, roughly?
I was there I've been there twice in, I'd say, like, a couple of months. Yeah.
So what did you find about Japan? Because I find like Japan was really alien when I first went there.
It's the first other planet that you actually go to. Because of the symbols, do you reckon? It's because of the language?
It's the language, definitely. Like a lot of people, like Japanese people don't really speak too much English.
Yeah. And
it's, if you go out there into the public, it's like very rare that someone actually speaks fluent English.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Because then it kind of forces you to conform into like their world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially with all the written language everywhere.
Yeah.
And even the behavior is different.
Yeah.
So like in Tokyo, one of the strangest things I felt was couldn't really find like a rubbish bin.
Yeah, it's massive. Actually,
I realized just how like messy like I was,
Yeah.
Like it had a pocket full of rubbish. And
Yeah, it makes people conscious of that, eh?
Yeah.
Do you know, to that point, actually, how Japanese don't speak, it's rare to find someone who's like a fluent English speaker.
Yeah, they try.
Yeah,
it's implemented in their schools and
100%.
things like that.
But it just, again, it shows us the country that we came from. We came from this colonized as fuck country, where they could have, like, Maldives and Pacific Islanders have such a rich history. We could have been, just this, I don't know, another country. I wouldn't say better or worse, but we could have been another country altogether. That's kind of like what Japan was. Japan only opened its borders to the rest of the world recently, like in the last, I don't know,
Recent times.
Recent times. which is why they don't seem so affected by Western culture. So when I went there, it was exactly that. Felt like I literally felt like I was on another planet.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, same. There was such a cool vibe going in to go use the toilet, and then Tingo's toilet's on the ground. Like, no way, what's that? What's that? But, yeah, that was actually the first country that I went to outside of Australia and the Pacific was Japan.
Japan.
So it was like a way to go, like way to be thrown into the world.
That's awesome. And the food that's the only place like I've traveled to and lost weight.
Yeah,
And, like I wasn't holding back, I was eating a lot.
Yeah. No, the food there is so good, man. So good.
It's so delicious, but it's not really good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's good for your weight anyway.
Yeah. I also find that I was walking around a lot more. I was like compared to a lot of places, like I was walking around a lot more there as well. So kind of the same way. But the food, man, I love that food so much. That's actually why I went back the second time. It was literally just because I had food on my mind. Yeah, so good. Such an awesome place.
Yeah, so you lived in Amsterdam, yeah? For like how long?
So I was there for just over a year. I was actually living
a whole year.
Yeah, just outside of Amsterdam. I kind of like split my time between this place called Belma, and which is I'm not even gonna try to pretend like I know where it is.
All right, somewhere over there.
Somewhere over there. It's a couple of hours. It's like an hour outside of Amsterdam, and then the rest of the time I spent in Amsterdam, in the red light district. That was a silly experience. Yeah, that was insane.
So what made you decide on Amsterdam? Was it for substances? Get some of that good.
Yeah, I always had this thing, and people don't believe me when I say this, but we were born in New Zealand.
We'll set it straight.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to set it. So New Zealand was named after a Dutch town called Zeeland.
Really?
Abel Tasman was Dutch.
Oh wow!
And so I remember,
I had no idea.
Yeah, so as a kid, like, man, this is like when I was
got some
7,
connection
8.
there.
Yeah. When I was like 7, 8, hearing about this place,
intrigued you.
It's literally on the other side of the world. At 7 and 8, nothing else exists. All that existed was my walk to school, walking past that dairy, past the field, blah blah blah. And so just having to comprehend that there was another place on the other side of the world that was trying to take over the rest of the world and all that stuff, like that really interested me and it really stuck with me. So my whole life I had, that was one of the first places I wanted to go to was Zealand, particularly, specifically. And then I grew up, so my reason for moving to Melbourne was to save up my airfare so I could go to Amsterdam, live there move to the Netherlands. I had no idea. I didn't even know much about Amsterdam, to be honest with you, before, when I left New Zealand. Came here, got stuck into money, got distracted by money, and then I ended up going there and found out about Amsterdam. We had made some connections, and I ended up moving over there. So it was.
Oh, so you kind of always had this ambition to get.
It was on my
to
bucket
that
list.
area,
yeah, definitely. It was on my bucket list for sure. So I'm glad that I did that.
So what's Amsterdam like? I've never been.
It looks like a stage set. I don't know. Again, it looks like a stage set. Like it looks like a stage set to a Broadway show. Like you go there and then you realize. I remember the first time I went there, you obviously go with rose-tinted lenses on. You know this as well when you first went to Europe, even when you first went to Europe, actually, and you saw the buildings and everything. It's unbelievable, man.
It's not just like a corner.
No,
it looks...
That's exactly. It's like one heritage building. It's a whole city.
Surrounded by modern buildings.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like the whole place.
Yes, the entire place is there, and you're just like, that's breathtaking, eh? And I remember walking, so Amsterdam is built on a swamp, on an old swamp. And so all of the buildings around that were built in the swamp, they're all wonky. So some of them are leaning towards each other, and some of them. So it looks so quirky, man. You go there and you're like, this looks fake. Like it really looks really fake. That's what I was thinking. Anyway, that's probably what they think when they go to New Zealand because everything's so new and perfect. This kind of thing.
It's like real leaves.
Yeah, exactly. It looked like a movie set kind of thing. But then it was when I walked past the town square. past the palace where they've got this like giant square outside, and just had this Disney moment where you're like, you know, you could hear like the birds singing.
Sound of music?
Yeah, exactly. The freaking skies open up and everything, and it's just this beautiful moment. So that was my introduction to Amsterdam. Regardless of how I felt about it, I knew that I was going to live there because, like I said, it was on my bucket list. So I was like, nah, I'm going to make this work, kind of thing. But I had to go get my haircut. That's how I ended up getting my job. I had to go get my haircut, and this was on my first time that I went to go visit. So I went to go do this Euro trip, and I visited Amsterdam. I had to go get my haircut. Went to go get my haircut at this place. Sat in the chair. This guy that was from Riwa, actually, Manurewa, shout out to Pace. And and he's cutting my hair. Cutting my hair, and I'm telling him, I'm like, I really want to move here. That's just based on a whim. You know, I've got no plans, whatever. I'm currently working in for an events company back in Australia, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, you should come work here. Like, you, if you do this, if you're stuck for casual, you start trying to find work, come and work here. There's that bar next door. You could work there. You know, you can work with the boys, learn how to cut hair, blah, blah, blah. Just like feeding my ego. And I'm like, man, this sounds like perfect. I want to do that. I need this life-changing
opportunity
thing.
On your lap.
What a cool opportunity. So I come back to Australia. I quit my job in 2 months.
So you went there like just for a trip? Euro
just
holiday?
Check it out. Yeah, for a holiday. Came back, handled my resignation. Gave him 2 months. I was talking to my boss at the time. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to work at this barber shop. It's going to be sick and everything. I emailed the boys at the barber shop. There's the two boys from Christchurch that owned the barber shop.
Yeah.
Emailed them. I was like, hey, boys, blah, blah, blah. Here's my CV. I'm coming over to work for you guys. This is like, and repeating this back now sounds so stupid, but this is literally what I did. I emailed them maybe like 3 times.
Like it was already in the bag?
It was in the bag, you know. And then my boss, even at my farewell, everyone's like, oh man, you know, it's so much fun working at this barber shop and everything. I'm like, I'm so excited. Bro, I rocked up from the airport straight to Central Station and took my luggage, walked to the barber shop. It's like, I'm here. And they're like, who are you? I'm like, I emailed you guys, this kind of thing. They're like, do you have any bar experience? I'm like, nah. They're like, why do you think you could work here for? And I'm like, because I'm Kiwi, man. Like, what the hell? So ignorant, man. So they're like, nah, you need bar experience, man. Like, what the hell? Like, I just traveled halfway across the world for this. And I went around the corner to this hostel bar to like drown my sorrows with my friend who was over there at the time. And it was like this Australian, New Zealand hostel bar. And this girl from Melbourne served me, named Renee. This girl from Melbourne served me, and then she was like, why are you so sad? And I'm like, told her that whole story, and she's like, come work here, you can work here. So I ended up working there for a month. The boys finally it was literally around the corner from the bar I wanted to work at. So the boys came in and had a drink with me, and they're like, oh, we got your email. So they got one of their staff members, like their manager, to contact me, and he was like, can you come in for a meeting? I went in for a meeting the next day after working at the hostel bar for a month. Went into the other bar, the barber shop, and then he's like, we need you to be manager. And I was like, I've only worked at a bar for a month, and I've never managed people. You know, it's like, welcome to the hospital. So it's like, yeah, sweet. So I managed that bar for a whole year, man. It was sick. It was sick.
From like a high to low to high.
Hard, yeah, exactly. And that's when I contacted all my mates back here, and I was just like, yeah, living my dream, man. Like,
instant photos, like, yeah, it's gone good at the
like
bar.
A month late.
That's crazy, man. Just flew all the way there.
But just so like,
it works out, you know.
Ignorantly confident, you know. Like I went there. Honestly, man, I remember that moment walking up into that barbershop with my luggage as well. Walking up and just being like,
where's my locker?
Yeah, guys, I'm here. Where's my locker? Where's my key?
Where's my key?
But yeah, no, it was a cool experience. I learned from that.
What, it didn't cross your mind that you would have to cut here?
I'm not even gonna lie. I knew.
Seems pretty easy, eh? Learn on the job.
Learn on the job, man. Got electricity, plugging the clipper, bing, bong, bang.
Number 1.
Number 1, 2, what do you want? Doing these ones with the scissors? Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea. I was just ignorantly confident. And I obviously only realized that now, because at the time, it didn't have a name. That was me. I was, this kind of thing. I'm going to get it because I'm me. And that was a mad eye-opening moment. Like, rein
That's
it in,
good.
guys. Like, you're not that. But it was
You got it in the end.
got it in the end. It all worked out. But it was a sick experience, man, and it made me think about how our parents or how my parents are immigrants, you know, and how they had to land on their feet, like they had no other option. That's kind of how I felt. So I was talking to a lot of like birds of a feather, flock together. Whenever I've gone overseas, I've always kind of attracted Kiwis and all this. So I was talking to a bunch of my Kiwi mates over there, and they had, whenever they were having problems, they were like, I'm going home, you know, or I can't handle this, I'm going home type thing. And that wasn't something that was in my mind. I also think it's because I had this dream since I was like an 8-year-old kid that I needed to live here. But even when I was like at my lowest moments over there, I was like, well, I might be homeless in Amsterdam, and that's going to be a part of my story. You know, it's going to be a part of my experience kind of thing. Like, there's no going home. I need to be here for a year. That's why I'm here. You know, anything that happens within that year, that's part of the story. So, this kind of thing.
What were some of the rough times you had over there?
They were like, honestly.
Like money related?
Yeah, money related.
Is that like most people? They run into financial issues?
I think as well, because I never worked hospital. I was late 20s when I moved over there, and I had already kind of formed or like based my lifestyle based on a certain wage that we get in Australia that we don't even get in New Zealand. And so my, you know,
expectations were high.
Expectations, well, just off, you know, my own life. But
my lifestyle was quite lavish.
Exactly. I flattered with this. I flattered with this girl from Latvia, and her boyfriend was from Australia. So I flattered with them, and one time him and I were talking, and he's like, "Oh, listen to the song." I didn't have Spotify Premium, and he's like, "Oh man, you know, we're so poor." And then he's like, "I miss taking Ubers everywhere," and I'm like, "I miss Uber Eats." And she walked in. She's from Latvia, Eastern Europe, and she walks in. She's like, "You boys are so spoiled." And I'd never, I was raised in South Auckland. Like, I would never consider myself like, I'm spoiled, like, you know, this kind of thing. I'm like, no, like, I've had this. And we both kind of got defensive. But she started to tell us about her life, and I'm like, yeah, no.
Good point.
Great point. I've never been hungry in my life. I've always had a roof over my head. I've literally don't even really think I know what hungry feels like, you know?
Like starvation.
Hunger pains, I thought was a joke. I literally thought that was a joke. Yeah, I didn't know that was a real thing. Like, man, I was a fat kid, whatever. So that kind of realization, it could have only happened in that kind of scenario. And so that's kind of what I take out of these kinds of travel experiences whenever anybody's been like, how was a trip? I'm like, I had all of these like micro moments that really helped me to perceive life better. But all in all, it's a beautiful country. Like, I love it. Also, I was working in hospital, and so a lot of my low moments were drug related. So that was another thing. And I don't know how people work hospital. Like, hats off to them. Man, late night, like you become like flipped, you know, like your life is from
nocturnal
10 to 6, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. sleeping during the day if you want, and then just that kind of flip I couldn't handle. It's not feasible.
Not for the long term. Eh?
Not for the long term. And you meet people who have been like working in hospital for like 20 years.
Yeah,
that's insane.
You know, humans adapt.
Yeah, for sure. And then sometimes people just everyone that I've known who works in hospital for like longer than 20 years, they're like, I was born for like I've always wanted to do this kind of thing.
Good for them.
Good for them. Exactly. Yeah.
So did you want to move back, like when you did, or
to Melbourne?
Yeah.
No, my visa was up. So
I had to.
Yeah. I didn't understand visa rules as well. That was another thing. Like, I wish that I had gone over there earlier. Because we could have stayed there longer. You can
before you're 30.
31, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't know that. Luckily, I chose that. Like, I looked into it when I did. Had I gone over there longer, I definitely would have jumped to other countries. I originally wanted to, was going to live in Paris. Being over there, after
it's
that.
Pretty close, eh?
Quite close, but you need to have, like, basic French. Couldn't be bothered with that, so... I wanted to go to Berlin as well. You know,
that's why the French don't like outside.
Exactly. It's got to be whatever.
Got me to speak English.
Yeah, exactly. But wish I had done that earlier. If there's anything that I tell like my little cousins, it's that if you're ever thinking about going overseas, do it right now, because you can, always come back. We've always got this safety net that you only appreciate when you don't have it.
Also the responsibilities, like. have children later on.
For sure.
Mortgages, debt.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
So where would you want to go to next? Like once all this COVID stuff is opened up a bit?
Yeah, I'm thinking like Berlin. I really want to check out Berlin. I think what will end up happening is that we'll go to like Asia because it's closer.
Bit more convenient,
Absolutely. But
cheaper, I think.
yeah, just had the travel bug though, like, and it's getting pretty itchy right now. Where do you think where's the next place you want? Where's the next place you want to check out that you haven't checked out?
Like say COVID is not an issue.
Not yet.
Like South America.
Yeah. Any place in particular?
Machu Picchu.
True. Yeah, trippy. Yeah.
But also Tokyo.
Yeah.
I want to take my kids to Disney Tokyo.
Yeah. It's a wicked experience. Is it expensive?
I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
Any
got
Disney's
time to save. Yeah. Got enough time to save up, so that's all good. Yeah.
But yeah, Brazil, South America, Machu Picchu's always been a big one.
Yeah.
But still want to take my kids there, right?
Yeah.
So, what about yourself?
Yeah.
Say if COVID's not an issue.
Then I really want to go to Berlin, but I think the next place that I'll end up going to is Tokyo.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just line it up.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. I still haven't been to Korea.
Yeah.
I find like the places that I've had my most enjoyable travel moments in have been the ones that I never wanted to see. Like one of my best experiences overseas ever was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I needed to go to Vietnam on my way back from Amsterdam because that's the flight route. That's the flight route. But this place.
Last in Ho Chi Minh City? Or Hanoi?
Hanoi. Yeah. Hanoi. And then we went to, I did the, like a motorbike tour on the north, the Hajiang Loop.
Yeah?
Yeah, so it goes up to China. And then I was like this 3-day motorcycle tour.
That sounds
random,
pretty cool,
as hell, man. Like, and like Amsterdam's a biking town, and I wouldn't even hop on a bicycle. Like, I'm scared shitless of bicycles.
Really?
I don't know. It's maybe because I'm.
So you ended up doing this 3-day
bike tour, man. This bicycle tour. Wow,
that makes logical sense.
I know. Yeah. So many.
Probably more dangerous too.
100%, man. Like nearly drove off a cliff. Like this kind of. Maybe that's why it was like more exciting because it was thrilling. Like I actually nearly died. Had these experiences, but I find that the best travel experiences at these places where you have
like no expectation,
no expectations even. Like, I didn't even know what I needed to go there. It was a stopover. It was a long stopover, and I needed to be there. But the food as well. Also, we're so familiar with the food like this. I never got that in New Zealand. I only had a banh mi for the first time here.
Yeah, I think me too.
Yeah, and they like changed my life.
Especially a really good one.
Yeah, good banh mi.
A good cheap one.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. A good
Price
cheap one.
Yeah.
$4.
That's it.
But there you get them for like 20 cents. This kind of thing.
20 cents.
Actually, yeah.
Oh,
ridiculous.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I thought I was getting a good deal over there. The food, man, it's really good, eh?
Yeah, man.
I thought it was cheap. I was probably getting ripped off.
Where? What did you do? Isn't it like 20 cents? You're like, I don't know. You do like the conversion. I don't know.
I didn't convert it, so I don't know. $100 and you get like a stack.
Right, yeah, fair. Yeah. That's fair, yeah.
So let's hope this COVID thing goes away soon, eh?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking for this COVID thing to go away soon, yeah. Just so we can get back into things. But I let me just preface this, like I feel like, I understand that, that COVID affected a lot of families and whatnot. But I think that we needed, like I was saying before, that the world needed something like this to happen to slow everything down. It's all moving so fast, man. Even now, we are.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Moving so fast, and I didn't know.
Smell the roses too.
Exactly. Yeah, enjoy the journey.
We appreciate for myself, I appreciate so much more thinking about it. Like a lot of things I took for granted. Some people are saying, when you travel, we talk about going to this country, this continent, But recently we've been celebrating going down, like an hour's drive away.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Wellington Peninsula.
Yeah, just checking out our state. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so much of Australia that we need to see.
Yeah.
Like I just booked a trip to at the end of March to go to Cairns to see the.
That's
the
a big trip too.
Man, yeah. Hopefully we're allowed to. I don't know how things will work out, but there's so much in Australia that we need to check out. And if we were back in New Zealand, I would say the exact same thing. There's so much of New Zealand that we need to check out. Have you been to South Island?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
See, now it's making us consider all these options, but we would have overlooked it.
Exactly. It's not the first place you want to go to,
But now it's like, can't wait.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like really looking forward to going back to NZ.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to?
Food.
Yeah.
There's a lot that I miss.
Yeah.
Whereas before it's like, I can do it you could go fly back for a weekend,
Yeah.
Now it's like, borders are closed for like, nearly a year. I don't know.
Yeah. So, we'll see. See if that works out. But that's a glitch, man. That was a glitch in my simulation. What's that? I was needed though. Needed to happen. I was going too fast.
Should we explain what this glitch, this simulation theory?
So,
we're talking about like time travel. That's possible, eh?
Yeah.
Time travel is possible. We
Exactly.
said that in theory.
So, theoretically, time travel is possible. And I just love the idea that this is possible because it's a sci-fi thing, anyways. But then when I was reading up on it and I was reading that there have already been, there's been work that's been done that kind of proves that this is possible, but physically it's not possible yet. We don't have the technology for it. That sparked my interest in physics and other sciences. And so I really want to do this. I want to be a part of the reason why we either time travel, space travel as well. I want to be a part of that. And as I've been studying, I've been finding out about all of these other like crazy theories or just crazy situations, and simulation theory is one of them. And I don't know everything about it, but based on what I know, it's basically that life's a simulation.
In some kind of form, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like when you think about time is almost like an illusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
So like everything's already happened.
Yeah.
Or has it?
There's I don't know this as a fact, but I'm randomly into like linguistics, just like the construction of languages, and there's this channel that I follow on YouTube, and I was watching this video and they were talking about time and how time is spoken about in different languages, thusly shaping our perception of time. They said that Māoris, on this channel, they said that in the Māori language, they view time as if you're falling into time. So your future is behind you and your past is in front of you. So if you're looking up and falling into this long, trying to drop, that's life. You're experiencing life like that, which makes so much more sense because you can see what's happened in your past. You can't see what's happening in your future.
That's interesting.
But in English, we say you look forward. Yeah, leave your past behind you. That's not how does that make sense? You can only see your past, you know what I mean? It makes sense, I get it. But I think that whole falling thing,
that makes sense.
And it shapes your perception, really. If you start to view life like I'm falling into life, I've got nothing, I'm trying to hold on to things, well, I don't know, there's so much language that can go around
interesting.
Yeah, really. But yeah, time's this measurement that we'll put on something that we don't fully understand, and it's helped us to understand things. That's happening in 2 days' time. That's you're 5 minutes late, this kind of thing. But
all started from I suppose the rise of the sun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Setting of the sun.
Yeah. How to food, to make sure that we're getting the crops, your crops and all this stuff.
Seasons.
Exactly. But now we've gone way too far into it. Now we kind of live our lives based on this thing called time, and we don't even fully understand it. Exactly.
But what is a second? It's just a measurement of...
It's something that's happening.
We can all agree on.
Yeah. But have you seen that movie, is it called Arrival?
I'm not sure.
What I understood about this thing it's a spoiler alert. But what I understood about this movie is that it touches on, it's like an Interstellar, it kind of touches on something like Interstellar does, but not so much. Interstellar is like ultimate for that. I think, but Arrival, it kind of touches on what you were talking about before, about how time isn't this linear construct. It's my understanding is that it's almost like this omnipotent thing. It's around us. It's more like instead of being able to see it from A to B, we're going this way. We're feeling it. You know, everything that's happened and everything that is going to happen is happening right now. So everything that happens along your journey, people die, you kind of fall over, hurt yourself, you lose money on gambling, you do drugs. Everything that happens, when it happens and you feel a certain way about it, you can't get too stuck. You can't get too caught up in these things and kind of, get miserable or depressed or, just get miserable about things actually. Because that's all happened for a reason. You're going to survive at the end of the day. It's just that this is an event that had to happen in your life. That's happened in your life. I don't know.
It was written.
It was written.
It's already...
Everything that's going to happen will happen, and everything that's happened
had to happen.
This kind of thing. But yeah, that's all a part of this thing. But I was listening to the simulation simulation theory. I remember scrolling through Tumblr back in Tumblr days. Scrolling through Tumblr, and I come across this post that was just like. This written post, and it said, if you're reading this, there's like this black box with just white text in it. It was like, if you're reading this post, then if you're reading this post, then we've broken through. The simulations, the technology's broken, the machine has broken, but we're working as hard as we can to get you out of the simulation. But I was scrolling through it like 5 a.m, whatever, and I read this like obviously delirious. I'm like, holy shit, like this could be a real thing. All right, okay, don't panic, this kind of thing. But things like that like really got me thinking about this thing of like, far out, this could be an actual like trippy thing, It turns out that it might be, so.
Probably is, maybe we're just looking at it in a different way, it's not like, maybe it's not like a simulation as in someone's watching us like on a TV, but more like multiverse, like bubbles.
Yeah.
It's like just bubbles upon bubbles of scenarios that just have already existed simultaneously, like never ending.
Yeah. We just exist.
It's just something that our minds are just trying to grasp. Is this like?
Yeah. Or that, are you saying that like we're just like reactions then? Based on something else that's happened? Because then the question is, what's the thing that happened that we're reacting to?
I don't know. I don't know the answer. I had it somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the thing. No one really knows.
Exactly. It's a set conversation to have. That's one I love having.
And that's why you're studying physics.
So that's why I study physics now. Yeah. So that's why I'm going to study physics. Because I just want to know the ins and outs of that. I want to know everything about that. But yeah, in preparation to go into uni, I was like just doing a lot more thinking, like COVID was happening and everything. And I think biology is like another massive thing. The fact that everything has life, around me, that I'm appreciating life so much these days.
Biological machines, that's how I think of it.
Yeah.
That's how do these machines work?
Yeah. I was, to the whole simulation theory point, of this like algorithm and AI and all of this chat. I was listening to these other guys. I was listening to this other podcast, and they were saying, what was it? He brings up how at this point in our lives we've had. Have you seen Zeitgeist?
I have, but like many years ago.
Yeah. So they touch on how gods have existed for ages, and that there's long story short that there's always been a keeper of the generation of like an age. Not a massive, like I'm not saying that I live my life based on Zeitgeist teachings, but I've seen the doco, and the doco talks about there being a keeper of an age, and the ages follow the horoscope. So Moses was the keeper of the age of Aries. Aries is a ram. He was a shepherd. His staff was his weapon. You know,
connections.
yeah, exactly. So it was all of these connections. The next age was the age of Pisces, or the age of the fish, and the keeper of the age of the fish was Jesus. He walked on water. The literal Christian symbol for Jesus is two fishes. He broke fish and bread with people. You know, this kind of thing. So there's a lot of links to he's a fisher of men. You know, whatever.
So what's the next one?
So the next age that we're getting into is the age of Aquarius, according to Zeitgeist.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. I keep saying that. I don't want people being, I don't want anyone being like, this guy's nuts. But according to the Zeitgeist soccer, the next age is the age of Aquarius, the water carrier. When I first seen the soccer was when climate change started to really start becoming hard hitting. Like, man, it's
like a real issue.
Yeah, people started.
Pressing
When Al
issue.
Gore did his Inconvenient Truth. That's the first time I saw Zeitgeist. Was in the exact same time actually. And so I started thinking about that. I'm like, man, water is like the next age is Aquarius, the carrier of water.
Mm-hmm.
Who is this? You know. More recently, I listened to these other guys talk about how, kind of touch on the same subject, how we've always had the history of men, of humankind. We've always had something to believe in. Right now, we're at the end of this God era or this Jesus era. Like religion's becoming a lot more exposed, or religion's becoming a lot more outdated, kind of thing. There's too much science being done to prove this thing wrong, you know, or not. Whatever. I don't want to kind of get into that. But now that Jesus is kind of losing his like swag, I guess, his appeal, then where you know what else is next
phase?
And I think that we're in this limbo. We're in this like weird kind of confusing state where we don't know what exactly to believe in. We've got information, we've got the algorithm, we've got internet, and I think that we're currently being overloaded with how many things that we could be believing. So we're now finding a lot more people are being confused, and why I think that a lot of people during lockdown and COVID were looking at conspiracy theories and just like giving their lives to them because they wanted something to believe in. You know, okay, I believe in this, I understand it, I get it, and so I just want to have something to believe in because I don't know what else to believe in. But yeah, these guys are talking about how the algorithm could be set up as like the new God. The algorithm is like knows you better than you know yourself. Is the new God because the algorithm knows yourself better than you know you.
AI.
Yeah, AI. You know, it's knowing who you are and all this stuff. It knows it's the new Santa. Sees you when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake, knows when you've been bad or good, like this kind of thing. It's this kind of thing. Working, that's that then tying back to the whole simulation. This whole thing, our simulation is based off of AI, or our simulations are human-made. Our human-made things are based on AI, something that us humans have created. If us humans have created something like AI, which is pretty smart, like I don't think that people really understand or think about what the capabilities of AI. It's amazing. It thinks more than we do. We've created that.
It's going to think for us.
Imagine
Maybe.
why. Yeah. Well, that's the plan. You know, that's what. You know, that's the plan. Why is the simulation theory being so ridiculous? You know, why is it so hard to believe if we've created something like AI? You know, and this is something that's only 2021. Yeah, it's only 2021, and we're coming up with this kind of technology where, like, it's more of a kind of thing than it was to me before. You know, a couple of years ago when I first started reading about it. Again, I'm not like quitting my job and kind of and like buying a bloody panic room or whatever. But
that was thought provoking.
Yeah, it's just something to think about, I guess. Yeah.
So what's the next symbol? You said the carrier.
Aquarius. Yeah, so that's the age that the Zeitgeist thing says that we're moving, if not have already moved into. It's Aquarius. The only thing I can think of is climate change, is that we're now becoming a water planet, a water world. Don't know what that means, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but that was my thoughts. Yeah.
That's interesting, man.
Yeah.
I was thinking more about the Aquarius thing.
Yeah.
And you got a good point with the AI.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking Age of Ultron, like a water version.
Yeah. What's Age of Ultron?
Oh, it's the Avengers.
What can you tell me more about?
Oh, it's like basically Iron Man created like some software, AI software.
Yeah.
This AI software kind of grew legs basically and started taking over.
Yeah.
And it built itself into this like ultra strong robot.
And that's Ultron.
And that's Ultron.
True.
And the movie's actually called Age of Ultron.
True. Is this the latest one?
Nah, it was a few movies back.
I've definitely seen it. I'm
You should watch it.
I'm stoned. I need to watch it. Not stoned. That's what's
the
happening. Well, they say that about AI. Is that AI has already done that. AI created itself. It's called the internet, and it's getting us to feed it, and we feed it with information. That's how it grows. That's what the algorithm thrives on, is information. Every single time that we go, even us messaging each other, you know, when I was on my way here, that's feeding the appetite of this algorithm that's forming itself, and it's coming in the form of like bloody computer. I don't know, man. I have no idea. It's going to start taking over us. Like, is that we then become the algorithm.
Well, that's why people like Mark Cuban and all that, all these guys, they say the only thing that possibly can't be replicated is creativity. But then I thought, well, you know, actually you could.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a test that they've done on AI to start painting pictures. It's not like, you know, that this is creativity means that you can paint a picture, but it's the beginnings of something that, you know, a study that, I don't know, it's the beginnings or findings that they haven't found right now. But yeah, 100%. Right now they can't. But they've created AI in our short time living. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't been alive for that long.
But like, actually think about like the creative process. What should I tell the AI the answer? What AI needs to do?
It's probably already heard it. It's definitely already heard it.
The difference is just being able to explain, you know, the intentions behind a piece of work to make it creative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you could do 2 lines and then describe like a backstory to why you know, drew the line that long and this direction. You know, you can make once you can apply like a base story essentially onto a piece of work, that's creative work.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I think anyway. So AI, you know, they can already print things, you know, accurately.
Yeah.
It has the hardware. But it's the creative side which people think AI won't be able to do, which I think they actually can do.
Because if that information, if these explanations of artworks are already online, art gallery websites, you know, or even just the artist websites, you know, then, and if that information can be found online, then that information can be used as part of the algorithm that makes this particular AI program creative, you know.
Exactly.
So it could literally draw 2 lines, and then when asked, hey, what is that? They were like, well, based on my
take a little bit of this,
a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you know, and what that means to me is unity, like whatever, you know. They'll come up with something like that. You're like, well, okay, that could have been,
profound.
that could have been from a person, like, you know, this kind of thing.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was trying to say there.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But yeah,
So where do we fit?
Well, this is why I want. So I have this like fantasy, man, and I know that, man, it might just be a crazy fantasy, but I'm allowed to
Of course,
allowed to dream whatever I want to dream. So
the stage is yours.
This is it. So, but no, that's why I started studying, is because I can sit here and I can have like these conversations about where we are, or like what we are, and what, you know, and we could go on for ages, but I really want to get into it to be like, to start talking to the people who are actually forming this technology, so I can be like, all right, so where are we, you know? I'm only going to get to that place if I start doing it myself. So
it's like the more you're feeding yourself, the more you're learning and getting closer to you know, it's like revealing more and more of the truth.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So I was having chats with some of my mates during this whole lockdown period about the whole QAnon situation, and they were like full on like buying merch and all this stuff.
What is that?
It's like it's like, I don't know too much about it, but it's basically like, what I know about it is that they believe that everything is a setup, that everything is crooked, and that even COVID wasn't real. COVID was invented to distract us from other things that are going on, kind of thing. Again, I don't know too much about it, but yeah, I was talking to my mates about their beliefs on this, and
it's plausible. A lot of these theories are plausible, but
yeah, they are. But then they're also there's so much crazy shit that's happened in this world that you could really make up anything you want. Then
spin the wheel and whatever.
Exactly, has probably happened. Some horror movies, like action movies, all this stuff. Anything that you've seen has definitely happened once. In this world. So that's the thing about this whole QAnon thing, is that they would take truths from something that's happened and then mix it in with they'll take like government control, government mind control, using drugs to control populations and all that stuff. And do you know who's doing that? Bill Clinton's a lizard, like things like that. It's bloody Queen Elizabeth, and she's a lizard, and all this stuff. Like
reptiles.
Yeah, they're all bloody reptiles. This kind of thing. You're like,
reptiles like food.
Right? Yeah. And I've seen them eating, like that kind of thing. So they start to confuse the lines, and then they're like
things.
All right, like this kind of thing. But that's why I feel like people didn't have anything to believe in. Like, people were so hopeless. And that's why something like this, something that does sound plausible, was something that they just held on to, they gripped, and they were just like, oh, this is my new religion, this kind of thing. But it's
good in a way to have these conversations, 100%. Until you can disprove something.
Yeah.
Let's keep talking about it.
Well, that was the point. That was the reason why I wanted to go into studying this, was because none of you guys, none of my mates were doing anything to kind of find out whether these things were real.
Like from a scientific.
Yeah, like all of their research is done on social media. The opinions and information that you find on social media are as plausible as an opinion you'll hear at your local cafe. Like you're standing in line, you hear an old lady say, COVID's fake. Then you'll go home and you're like, hey, guys, I've decided COVID's fake. I heard it at the cafe. This is how it is, this kind of thing. So it's like, man, no one's actually going in to find out, anything. No one's doing anything. Not that I'm doing that, but I'm on my way to doing that. And I think that's safer than just like going out and spreading mistruths based on a Facebook post.
Yeah.
And it's
you see a lot of that.
So definitely. Much of it. Yeah. Too much of it. For anything.
Well, bro, all the best for your studies, man.
Thanks, man.
Come up with some answers for us.
I will.
Well, I think I might have to stop it there, and my phone's blowing up.
All right, sweet, bro. Sweet.
I want to keep going. Good stuff.
I could keep going, but nice, sweet, man.
You want to come back, yeah?
Always, man. Yeah, always.
Right. That's like 1 hour and 30 minutes.
That was long. Yeah.
Felt like it just went like that.
Actually, yeah. I didn't think I would even say anything, to be honest. Didn't know what else.
No, that's gold.
Appreciate it.
Very good stuff. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we?
No, not anything in particular. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Oh,
thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure, man. Yeah. You want to get some shout-outs?
Shout-outs to Mum. Said that already.
Shout-outs to Mum.
Also, all my mates I was talking about.
You guys don't know anything. Just study up. Actually, I just realized there's like a whole bunch that we're going to still talk about. So we'll save that for the next one.
For sure, man. Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Thanks, bro.
The old awkward thing.
Pac-Man.